up, TTR family? It's your boy JD and the TTR crew. Right next to me, I got my guy, Dirty Dan. Right next to Dirty Dan, we got main event RJ. Right next to main event RJ, we got Meech Black. And today we have come and want to film something a little special. I call it a special meeting because we were having a lot of, conversations with the Vince McMahon special out on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going to see it. If you're not even a wrestling fan, just go watch it. Very insightful, impactful in many different ways, like depending on how you look at it, and just hearing a lot of testimonies and just hearing a lot of different angles, and just a lot to unpack. Whether you're a fan or not. Just watching it unfold was just something to behold. I mean, yeah, well, we'll kind of dive into it a little bit here. But welcome, TTR family. It's your boy JD, as always, the only place for your hot debates and hot takes. Let's talk a little bit about Vince McMahon and the special period. And the way I kind of wrote my notes were kind of just based off the TV show. So we'll kind of go episode 1 to 6 almost. Like I got a little bit things thrown in between, but we'll kind of follow the chronological order of things that I found interesting within the show. Very early on, they go through Vince's life early on, just as a child. And one thing I didn't know is that he was abused early on. And apparently he had a sit down with Playboy back in the day, and he made comments that he alluded that his mother his mother sexually molested him. So he made allusions to that. Not that actually came out in words by him, but he has alluded to that. So those two things I found very interesting in the beginning, to see that again, it's interesting to me because it seems like a lot of CEOs and big business people have this similar background, and I think about things in a deeper way, and like the psychology of it. And it's like, what drives somebody to go this far within their business, and to see Vince and this entire special now have no limits for his business is actually quite frightening and pretty scary, actually. So early on in the show also was not only him being abused and things like that. It was also about him starting WWE early on in WWF, and how that became about, and actually taking the helm from his dad. And this is where I kind of want to bring some of the panel here. So early on, if you didn't watch the special, Vince McMahon and his father, the way that his father was running it and the way that these federations would run were by regions. And there were like an East Coast region, Northeast, things like that. It was split up into a couple different states, and the wrestling federations would stick to that. And Vince's father would actually follow that mold. And Vince was the first person to say, look, I want to try something different. I want to go with national television. So my first question to the panel here is, and I'll let anybody kind of ring off, was taking out other competition smart? So obviously in the long run, you can kind of see what WWE is, but I want to go a little bit deeper. Do you really feel like wrestling could coexist with a bunch of different brands and everybody could get along, especially in today's climate? Maybe not so much for the time, because you see how much it paid off, but do you think maybe nowadays that we could see very regional things like this and it will make sense? I mean, we kind of have it now, but they're more underground. Do you think that we could see other successes almost like WWE and have it regional like before? Or do you feel like, man, that's just like a thing of the past? Anybody can go on this.
I think that'd be like a thing in the past. There's no way I don't think we could have anything like regional like that again. Like I don't see it. Like for how the landscape is.
If not regional, maybe more than WWE and AEW, because obviously you have AEW, but it also feels like AEW is kind of lacking behind WWE at times.
But I don't think we have TNA.
But I don't think they don't even feel like up there. You know what I'm saying? So you do have a few other organizations out there, but like none of them really feel up to par with WWE. And do you feel like, and I'm gonna take it a step farther because this is about Vince. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like his thought process at the time with this was truly revolutionary or greed? Or do you feel like it's a little bit of both, and that's exactly what it took to make this thing become what it is and what we see today?
I think it was both.
I definitely think it was both. Revolutionary and greedy.
Yes.
Dirty Dan, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like Vince McMahon at the time was somebody who should be, or even now, should be looked at somebody as revolutionary or more of as a greedy character, or could it be both?
I go with both.
But I like to add, like,
you could say he was greedy yet, but he also did help out Paul Heyman with ECW and stuff like that. not like he didn't do certain things. Now you could also say at the same time, I'll say both. It was for his own gain in the long run, also.
Yeah.
But Danny, I have a question for you.
Yeah, I like this. Go ahead.
But do you really think Vince McMahon helped Paul Heyman to make ECW as big as it could have been? Because I think ECW could have been bigger than what it is. It could have been. It could have been the third brand of what NXT is now. It could have been ECW.
No, because once again, let me tell you something. In the mind of a businessman, it's not my problem if ECW profits or not.
Yeah.
That was Paul Heyman's problem.
Right.
And Paul Heyman wasn't good with money. It's well documented.
And I'm gonna get RJ on this too, but I feel like ECW at the time and just period was meant to be more underground. It felt like it was the king of the underground. It feels like that type of crowd and that type of wrestling, fandom needed that type of rough and rugged. It didn't feel like that should have ever been like a multi-billion-dollar organization. I think Paul Heyman was the face of it, and he came out absolutely amazing. He was absolutely amazing in this documentary as well, I would say. I would love to actually see him actually like just do the entire thing, like his voice. So RJ, also, like how do you feel, bro? Do you feel like Vince at the time was revolutionary or greedy? Do you feel like it could be a little bit of both? How do you feel like early on his strategy with wrestling? Did you like it? Like, did you feel like that was smart overall?
I think it was smart, but I think I'd actually label it more as greedy than revolutionary. Well, I mean, I guess it is technically both, but I'd actually mark it more towards greed than anything because, I mean, you can say it was a good idea now because it worked, but there's a very real reality that it didn't work and that him stacking and hoarding talent, not being able to pay them, and then them going off to other companies or going back to those territories to hopefully rebuild, but then at that point they had their biggest stars gone, so that could have crumbled wrestling as a whole. To be fair, so I feel like it's a little more greedy because it did work, and we can now have region-based ones. There's some in Ohio and in Philadelphia or whatever, but they'll never really get too big because even if you want to find one in your local area, you could probably throw a stone in your hometown and find a small wrestling thing, very small territory there, but you're not going to know about them unless you actively go seek them. So it did change the game forever, but also it risked completely tumbling wrestling as a whole. But I don't know, it worked. So I mean, we don't know.
Right.
If you want to be real, like at that point when he got greedy, I mean, do you really blame him? I feel like he thought he was playing with house money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he mortgaged his house and everything for first WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Like that was do or die. He could have lost everything.
Gamble. Oh my God. And I'm glad you say that because again, like I'm somebody who is fair. So TTR, if you're watching this, I always just talk about the totality of things, and to watch him take a gamble, it is pretty amazing to see, just somebody's idea literally take off. And like RJ said, to a certain extent, it is also a little unfair because he did take other talent, and that's exactly what made his wrestling shit pop. But the whole Hulk Hogan thing was actually very interesting. That dynamic. Oh, he's an idiot. I don't really want to dive into him at all because I have nothing nice to say.
You don't want to hear him live for 45 minutes,
bro. He's so
no air in between.
No.
Listen, I didn't do steroids, brother. That was
vitamins. Listen, I won't say this on the pod, and I'm gonna be defending Vince all like that. Everyone knows that, but Vince is so smart. He said, "Bro, just tell the truth. Tell the truth. What you lying for?"
Little things like that. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's little things like that that again. We talked about this in the chat where Vince shows that he can process things normally because we talked about past trauma and how that can affect the brain. So there's little moments like that show you he can actually think very effectively, and he is so right in that moment. Just tell the truth.
Just tell the truth on national live TV. They could go back and watch it. I'm gonna tell a lie. We don't take steroids. Next clip. I personally shot him up with steroids. Like
that was all vitamins and prayers, brother. Okay,
no, it's insane. It's insane.
But to be fair,
Go ahead,
he's
RJ.
working over 400 days a year.
Yes, I agree with you.
400 days.
Yes,
that's fine.
Again, tell the whole story. I love that you said that because it is true. You have to take the steroids. You have to take the sleeping pills because Vince McMahon at the time, because it's again now this is the reality. So now he smashed everybody. Now we're moving up. So now Vince McMahon is making me work 7 days a week. And there's no days off. So in order to keep up with his pace, I have to be strong nonstop. Well, there's only so much working out I can do. I can't work out 7 days a week. So I'm going to steroid it up. I'm going to take these sleeping pills, which is a natural disaster. And you got people dying before 40. And it does feel like it's on Vince's hands almost in a weird way, but in a very truthful way because you overwork people. So not to get too much off the beaten path because again we'll get into that. So as we get deeper into the episodes, we come across the screw job, and this was a very interesting conversation that we had in our group chat, and this is what sparked me to be like, yo, we gotta do this on the podcast because there's so many different angles of looking at this. And as always, again, I always fall in the middle. I think everybody's correct. And TTR family, if you're watching, made it this far already, beautiful. Please let us know how you feel below. But, when I saw this, at first, I was always like in the middle. Again, I could see Brett, why he would feel that way. But like watching this and seeing how the contract was, what I didn't know going into this was that Bret Hart had creative rights. So in the documentary, they don't mention that. They literally just say, I signed up for 20 years. So if you haven't seen the documentary, you don't know about the screw job that happened to Bret Hart, I'll give you just a very fast-paced version of it. So let's just say this starts with a contract between WWE and Bret Hart. I'm gonna just start it there because then go back way farther. Between these two families, they go back very far. So I'm gonna start it there just for the sake of time. So about the screw job, gets a 20-year contract some years ago. I guess fast food, whether it's a couple months, couple years, whatever. Things aren't working out. Vince feels like Bret isn't the attraction that he's supposed to be. He feels like it's a bad investment. He goes up to Bret and says, hey, we're going to renegotiate this contract. Obviously, it's not this easy. I'm just making this very quick for the sake of time. But they have conversations. Apparently, Vince got Bret and this is why I'm going to let RJ and Dirty Dan fill in spots, but I'm giving the fast pace. This is where Bret and Vince now have a little friction because Vince was telling Bret, I need to back out of this contract because I gave you this 20-year contract. It was a stupid investment, blah, blah, blah. Bret saying, no, I'm not with this. But then what Vince does is wind up getting Bret a bigger contract or something along those lines, but a lucrative contract, showed him the loopholes within the WCW contract to get him more money with the opposition. Said, have a good day. I appreciate it, but you have to cough up this championship. Shawn Michaels, which he did not like at the time for multiple reasons, like he was in Canada, like he didn't like Shawn Michaels, and me and my personal feelings at the time, and still kind of is, again, I can see where things get sticky because, again, I'm an employee. So not only am I a business owner, I'm also an employee. So I can put myself in both positions here. But the way I look at it is if a boss was to come up to me and say, hey, I got you this deal, but you got to cough up this, I feel like I no longer own this belt. I feel like this never has been mine. I don't know if I ever feel that way. Like when I'm at a job, I don't feel like it's my job. I know I'm the expendable employee at any moment because that's just what a job feels like to me. I would feel the same exact way in that position. And if I was the champion and Vince was like, look, you got to cough it up before you go, even if you don't like the guy, myself, I feel like I would have coughed it up. And there's a lot to unpack here. And I'm going to pass this off to RJ because RJ and me kind of did in the Danny too. Okay, I'll get to Danny too. We'll go to both. No, we'll go to both because Danny, okay, let's do this. Let's go to Danny first and we'll pass it off to RJ. So Danny, you want to talk?
Well, no, I was going to let RJ go. I just had to make a correction real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Make a correction. Yeah, I love that. Please do it. Please.
I had to make a correction.
Yeah.
Vince didn't help him to find loopholes in the WCW contract.
Okay.
It was in the WW. It was in Vince's contract.
Uh-huh.
That way he could back out of the
Out of the
contract,
contract.
and sign with WCW.
WWE. Okay, that's what it was. Okay, so he got out of the WWE contract, and then he got
Vince,
him a
Vince let him know what the loopholes were for him to be able to back out of the WWE contract, so he can go to WCW.
But in the documentary, they stated as if he got they got him a nice deal with WCW, and when
that's
me
what
and
they
you were
definitely made it
texting,
seem like
and
that.
that's when me and you were texting. You seem like that's what you thought.
That's because that McMahon knew Bischoff was handing out money to everybody.
Okay, all right. So I understand. Okay, I understand. So what you're saying is basically he got him a bigger deal, but Vince McMahon didn't actually do that out of his mouth per se, or in writing, right?
He just helped him find the loopholes to back out of the
contract. But that's
go ahead, RJ. Go ahead first.
No. Thank you for saying that, because in the documentary, that's what it felt like. That's what they made it seem like. They were like, he found loopholes in the contract, got him out, blah blah. So it seemed like almost like a favor. And again, I still kind of do feel that way. Again, as the boss at the time, as much of a dick as Vince McMahon is, he could have easily just said fuck you and just said whatever. But anyway, RJ, go ahead and give me some of your thoughts about the screw job. Let me know how you feel about Bret Hart, because we had a good conversation. So talk to me.
Yeah, I think you're not undervalued. It's Bret was a lot higher than a basic employee though. Like I understand he's still an employee, but Bret wasn't just the guy that happened to be champion at that point. He was the champion when all the steroid stuff broke out. So I understand Bret wanting to pull his control, because Shawn was admittedly a dick. That's just how he was.
Yeah.
He didn't say, I'm not dropping to Shawn, figure it out. He said, I will drop it the very next night on Raw. He was very willing to do that as long as they were just out of Canada. Now I understand from a business standpoint, they're like, well, we can't risk him leaving because they've already had it happen once with WCW where a title went over to their product.
Well, I can't remember her name, but with homegirl.
Alexa Blaze.
Yeah.
I understand the paranoia, but Alexa, and actually, I'm actually glad you brought her up, because she actually talked about it multiple times, that she, one, didn't want to do it in the first place, and two, felt bad afterwards. But the thing is, she got screwed over at her own screw job way worse than Bret did, because it was a fake 3 count. She lost her streak, she lost everything, and then she was just gone. Not because she was willingly leaving, but because he didn't want to renegotiate her higher money when she was owed higher money. So
great point.
If you could screw her over and she's still so weary about doing this to the point where she had to get talked into it, you didn't treat Bret that bad up to this point. You actually gave him more than he could have probably ever expected. So I feel like because Bret, I can't say, I'm not in either of their heads. Right. I feel like there would have been enough respect before this that Bret would not have tried anything funny. But his paranoia got the best of him and he screwed him over. And instead of getting, because after WCW went down, unless, because the Goldberg thing happened, he retires and whatever. If that, he probably would have signed a legend deal with WWE way sooner than he did. If Vince would just be like, okay, I'll let you drop it at Raw. It goes to Shawn immediately. Vince gets what he wants. Bret gets to shake hands and walk away. And then when WCW dies, which he could have predicted, he would have had everybody back at a perfect amount of time, and he could have kept the connection there. I just think it was pure paranoia. And honestly, if you just pulled back a smidge, just a smidge, I feel like this timeline would look a lot different. And Survivor Series 96 would have just been known for a really boring last man standing match. Or Iron Man match, whatever the hell they had. That's just boring.
I respect that. Go ahead, Meech. Go ahead. It is. Go ahead.
Before I say what I want to say, didn't Bret's brother pass after this, or was it before this?
After.
It was after.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't want to sound crazy, but what I was gonna say. Never mind.
Okay, yeah. So and that's another conversation that I had. Dirty Dan, I'm gonna pass this off to you now too, because I know you also had some strong feelings on this. To expand on the Bret Hart thing too a little bit, and why I was talking about him is because I also said inside a group chat, I feel like he's a crybaby a little bit. I feel like every time I see him in clips, it's always like negative. And then RJ said, well, this is just a lot of time inside of the company and not getting exactly what he wanted, which I understand that. But like, again, like the Goldberg thing, like, he hurt me. And it's like, I feel like, bro, maybe you were just old at the time and maybe it was just your time. It's like, it seems like every time I see Bret Hart, something negative. So, that's why I was like, man, it just seems like I want some positivity out the guy. So Dirty Dan, how did you feel about the screw job? What are your feelings looking at it now, knowing almost everything? You're never going to know everything in totality because it's almost impossible in the wrestling world, but knowing what you know in depth, how do you feel about it now? Do you feel like he is a crybaby at times. You feel like, no, man, he's damn near justified, and he was a major player and he deserved more respect. Talk to me.
Well, when it comes to Goldberg, he could just shut up already. But we get it.
right.
No, I'm
Bill
just saying, like,
Goldberg.
okay, we understand he gave you a concussion and ended your career.
Yeah, we got that. Yeah.
But
he injured everybody, man.
Wait,
No,
hold
but
on.
not even that.
You got put in context by accident.
It was by accident.
okay, well, let me fucking finish. Anyway,
You got to put that in there.
I was about to explain that it was a smaller ring. Goldberg didn't give enough space.
Yeah.
Bret Hart should know better. But when it comes to the Vince thing, no, he's 100% right. This is Vince being paranoid. Period. Because at the end of the day, you can't. This is how I feel.
Yeah, I like
my
it.
man gave blood, sweat, and tears to y'all. He's did everything that you asked of him. The only thing he asked for in the end was, let me win in Canada, which anybody that knew it was Bret Hart knows.
That's a big deal.
He takes the Canada thing serious. That's where he's from.
I understand. I can
So
respect
he
that.
didn't want to lose there, and he would have dropped the title the very next day. I understand where Vince is coming from, but Shawn was taking some personal shots, like beyond wrestling. Like it was personal shots, bro.
But I'm so iffy on that. Yeah, I'm so iffy. Okay, and
You gotta bring ratings
go ahead.
in. You gotta bring the ratings in because like
Go ahead.
we're selling a story. Like we're going to push each other's buttons. Like that's what we're supposed to do.
Now, hear me out, because we do this often when we look at things through a microscope from now back then. Well, let's do it from back then to now. Now we love the Twitter stuff. We love when they get damn near real. So like now we cheer it on, but when they did it, now we understand it now. So I'm not saying it's hypocritical, but talk to me. Go ahead, RG. I like that.
We're talking about a
Yeah.
different time frame back in the day. That wasn't like that.
But then hear me out. But then we can't sit here on Netflix and then look at stuff from the Attitude Era, and then like it was a different time frame too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm explaining to you why Bret Hart has a right to feel how he felt.
All right, continue.
Because at the end of the day, he had creative control, like I said. So at the end of the day, if I'm telling you I'm going to drop the title the next day, Vince could say he was paranoid he want. To me, that was another power move also. Paranoid, but it's a power move by him saying,
narcissism.
I don't have to do anything you tell me.
Yeah.
You're leaving. I'm doing what I want.
I can respect that take. I get
now,
that. But go ahead.
At the end of
Meech had a rebuttal.
at the
Continue. I like open conversation. Go ahead, continue. Finish.
now at the end of the day, he caught an uppercut. Got knocked the fuck out.
I mean, he paid. He paid for it. He paid.
Yeah.
So,
But
but
Meech,
look,
what was your
again, to
rebuttal?
me,
Real
that's
quick,
just
before
to
Meech
me, that's
forgets.
paranoid.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Paranoia. Go ahead, Meech.
I'm gonna say this.
Just forget.
We're forgetting a key part here in this conversation. We're forgetting like the man that started this, Triple H. Like we can't all just put this on Vince McMahon because like
Right.
Triple H said like, fuck him.
No, you're right, because I actually have that written down here too. Like Triple
keep,
H was the main force behind it, because they said Vince McMahon was, well, this is coming out of Vince's mouth and Triple H's mouth, that they were on a phone call together, like three of them on a three-way call, and Vince says he doesn't want to do it. Like, I don't know what else to do. So again, just going off face value, I can't dive. I wasn't there. Just going off what they're telling me, it would seem like Vince was like at wit's end. He was going to let Bret do what he wanted. It was Triple H, like you said. It's very interesting you say that, because we're talking just two people, but there were other people involved. It was Triple H that said, fuck it. And then that's when Vince McMahon was like, fuck it. But if Triple H didn't say fuck it, I'm not sure if Vince would have fucking screwed
I don't think you pulled the trigger.
So
I don't think you would pull the trigger.
Excellent point. I'm not sure that he would have or wouldn't, because again, it's speculation. Yeah. It happened, so we're here talking about it. But that is an excellent point, that Triple H was the main factor behind that.
And we also got put in there. Also, I don't defend Vince a lot, but he's also stood 10 tones because he told them to lie their ass off, and I'll take whatever heat comes.
Yeah.
Bro ate a mean uppercut and left that room limping, dazed. like nothing happened.
And just kept going.
I give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, at certain aspects, you gotta look at it and say, "Holy shit!" Like, not only were you a monster, I mean, other people fucked you up too. You had to go through just as much because, like, of the shit that you were doing. So rightfully so. But and like you said, in order to get punched in the face and I mean to get beat up every single night,
and he got spat on. He spit on him right in the eye.
And
like
that's what I'm saying. And to go back to that point, almost. When we say about realism, I mean, we're cutting ourselves, we're spitting on each other. Like, of course, words and things are gonna get blurred. And what I'm not saying is that Sean wasn't a complete dick to Brett and didn't mean what he said. That's not what I'm not saying. I think what you're saying is true. But in the same exact breath, it's what was working with the business at the time. Jerry Springer was popping at the time. These are different things that were on TV and that people were buying into. So people were just naturally giving that shit out. I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong, because again, that's not what I do. I'm just saying I understand. But go ahead. Yeah, Dan, talk to me.
Well, I was just going to make a point also.
Mm-hmm.
For wrestling fans that have been watching wrestling for a while,
mm-hmm.
let us not forget that Shawn Michaels and Triple H are a bunch of fucking hypocrites.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh my
because when it came time for Shawn Michaels to do his dues and drop the title to Stone Cold, Undertaker was waiting backstage ready to beat his ass if he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
There was talks that he wasn't going to do it. So what kind of hypocritical bullshit is that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And it's what I'm saying. It's why I like to stay on the path because in wrestling.
I'm sorry, I just had to.
No, you're okay. Because in wrestling, we have like 100 million different pieces of information. This is what I love about the conversation. But anyway, to kind of progress. So the screw job was fucked up. I see Brett's side. I definitely understand. Again, as someone like RJ said, maybe I am undervaluing. So to speak a little highly, if I am your main guy, I expect a little bit more out of you. Again, I still think Vince came to him and did whatever. So we see a little different there. But regardless, he got screwed over. We continue. I definitely agree with RJ 100% that Blaze got fucked over the most. Me watching that was like so fucking just like I was aggravated watching that. Like it's just fucked up how you just gonna 1, 2, 3 quick. Like it's insane. So
yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Next on my notes, Vince McMahon claims he is not in character. So this is another really good conversation that I thought. So like we were just talking about blurring the lines, right? And in wrestling that happens so often. And Meech, you saying so I'll pass this off to you for a little bit. You know, at what point does Vince McMahon is himself or his character? And do you feel like they are just the same exact person at this point? Because I feel like they are. It's impossible.
Yeah. I think at this point, I think that they were always the same person. Like, I don't think he's acting because I feel like even outside of the wrestling world in real life, he's still the same person.
That way.
It really just like with all the allegations and the things that's been happening, it just seems like it's all the same person. Because if we're going to go back into the wrestling world, he was doing just about the same shit. He had girls getting on their knees, kissing his ass, and all that shit. Like, it's like the same shit. It's craziness. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like the only people that could really tell us what Vince is like is his kids.
I'm gonna pass this off to the other panel now because this is exactly where I was about to go with the conversation. His kids, Dirty Dan, I'll pass it off to you. Then we go to RJ with the next one because I think you'll have a very good point for the next one. Dirty Dan, his kids really, it's hard to explain. On some of the topics, they seem like they were a little hesitant on some of what they wanted to say. But overall, my consensus, my opinion, just watching all 6 episodes, it seemed like they were okay with a lot of what happened. And they seem like they're okay with him as a father. I could be reading different. How do you feel, Dan, when you watch the whole entire 6 episodes? Do you feel like Steph and Shane have a good connection with their father nowadays? Do you see any, like, how do you feel about that? Like, did you feel any?
Just because he did monstrous things doesn't mean he was a monster to his children.
And that's what I was trying to get at, but
so
there's just
I bet him and Shane didn't have the greatest relationship. This is why Shane left.
It's so hard to look, and as I'm saying, because we know, and looking at what he did with Stephanie, you know what I'm saying? Like, so take all that into consideration. What you're saying too. I'm not saying that makes him a bad dad, but do you feel like him bring? No, but I'm asking you. Can you say he's doesn't mean that he's a good or bad dad? I'm trying to figure out. Do you feel like bringing his kids into the limelight, all of that, like take all that into consideration? Do you feel like, like talk to me the overall? But you have done like the same exact path, like with your children. Like they seem like they're okay with damn near everything.
Well, with all due respect, the one thing I would have done differently is Triple H wouldn't be in charge. It should have been Shane McMahon. It should have been your son. Well, there's nothing wrong with Stephanie.
I thought that was weird too, but I'll digress for another day.
Like Shane not being in the position that he's supposed to be in, he was supposed to buy.
Because I'm so sick and tired of people saying what they said that they go, he's a nice guy. You can't have a nice guy. Shut the fuck up.
That's not true. Yeah, it's still not
nice
true.
Guy shit.
And RJ,
like
you shook your head.
That
on that
mentality.
Yeah. You like you could be a nice guy in the wrestling world and get away with it, right? Like why couldn't you? And Shane McMahon wanted to buy UFC, and years later UFC buys WWE. How crazy is that? You know what I'm saying,
bro?
So RJ, I'll pass it off to you too. Like it's Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon. How did you see their on-screen play, and like how do you think Vince did with them so far?
Is now a good time to say I haven't watched the doc?
Ooh, you haven't at all, and I respect that.
I didn't plan to, and I didn't expect there to be anything in there. There really wasn't much in there. So, I mean, I just want to go back. Who said Shane McMahon should be in charge? I want. What Rumble did he sign up or not sign up for that he directed that was so bad he got sent home afterwards? I mean, respectfully, I don't know what Shane's gonna how he's changed, how he's improved, but if you made a Rumble so bad you got sent home and fired off of, I don't think we should be letting them in lead of creative.
Well, respectfully, everybody could grow and learn.
Yeah, I would say, cool.
I would hope
bro.
So, but we also hope that Vince would grow and learn. And that motherfucker made wrestling bad from like 2006 to
your kids are not a product of you.
Yeah, I was
saying, but Shane didn't do. He wasn't doing well. So I'm hoping that he could.
But
it's also because Vince
I could go somewhere right now, but I'm not.
I mean, Triple H is leading a boom period right now. It's probably one of the most renowned forms of wrestling right now. So we're not going to act like that Shane was going to do this and more because we already got probably one of the best runs on TV we've had.
Well, hold on. I have a question. Hold on. RJ, you're right. But hold on. We didn't get Shane like the proper chance. Like he did one Rumble, and then you're right. It was terrible. Cool, but like he didn't get another chance after that. Yeah, like people just ran him off like we haven't seen him or nothing. But he's pretty much put his body on the line in the ring. Like, if I'm doing all that, I'm your son. Like, I need to get another chance. Like, I don't know what else I need to do. And they gonna give it to my daughter's husband.
I feel like this could have boomed with anybody, and this is my God honest opinion. And this is not a shot at Triple H. I honestly feel like everybody was so done with Vince McMahon that once he got out of the way, we were gonna have a boom. I could be wrong because RJ, I love what you're saying. But I deep down inside, because I just had this conversation with my wife today, so that's why I wanted to get my point out too, because I truly feel like Vince was so disgusting and so annoying, and we were so tired of him that it was going to boom. I'm very curious. I am very curious to see how the next 5 to 10 years plays out on Netflix. And I don't want to get too off the beaten path here. I do want to talk about Vince McMahon again. And Dan, I did kind of cut you off, so I want to bring it back to you. Vince McMahon was calling this shit family friendly. Okay. At what point was WWE ever family friendly? And do you feel like
80s?
And do you feel like 80s? Even with the PG era, was it family friendly? Talk to me. When has
the
WWE
PG
been
era?
Yeah. Like, was that even family friendly? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think so because they weren't really cussing. They were
nah, definitely when it's PG era, like
storylines. And see, this is why I fell off, so I didn't watch it.
Okay, so yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is why I stopped watching wrestling during the PG era, because I was just like, I was too much into attitude. I was just like, I can't do this right now. but was it family? Fuck no, not during the Attitude Era. For him to say it was family friendly during the Attitude Era, when chicks were popping out their titties for DX and everything else, and Stone Cold drinking beer and whooping, bro. How can you claim that you're okay? He claimed to act like it wasn't for the kids, right? But when you make toys, that's for kids. So obviously you wanted kids watching your product. Why lie about that? during the Attitude Era, you wanted fucking kids to watch, bro.
Oh, of course.
It's okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
you wanted everybody to sign up. Yeah, of course.
Family friendly 80s, maybe the PG
I will
era.
I will say this. Go ahead. Yep, PG era. Keep going.
Other than that, what the ruthless aggression era?
No. There's too much blood during that.
More blood.
Now it takes me to my next point, and this is family friendly. Here goes my also kind of issue with documentaries, that they painted females and divas as like they were just strictly sex symbols, and I know that that's how it was back then. Okay, but hear me out on something, and this is where I'm gonna call out hypocrites. I'm gonna call out fucking hypocrites here. I ain't gonna sit here and care. I tell her how it is. Tell my wife this shit. In the 80s and early, we had female wrestlers, and granted, they weren't marketed correctly, but they were out there and doing their wrestling thing. It might have been once a time, but nobody seemed to care. Okay, we finally have eyes on them. Okay, and it might be in the worst way possible, but again, when you look at TV at the time in the 90s, Jerry Springer, Baywatch had chicks running in slow motion and their titties was bouncing. We had Girls Gone Wild commercials going on every single night at 11 o'clock on. It was so
4 a.m.
noticeable. And it wasn't even that late, bro. It'd be 11 o'clock.
Of course he knew it was 4 a.m.
Yeah, I was going to spot that out.
It was 4 a.m. for me. Like
Crazy.
So while again, it's not okay. But you have to understand at the time it fits the mold, okay?
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
of course.
it expanded them and put eyes on them for the first time ever. It might have been in the most crazy way, but when we gave you a normal product, y'all didn't seem to give a fuck. And I know that it was only, again, it might have been marketed incorrectly, but it's also fit the time. People just didn't want to watch females wrestle. It just seemed that they were just following the time. So how do we incorporate females in a way? Was it the worst way possible? Sure. Again, I totally agree with that. But at what realm can we incorporate them and get them more notice? I think nowadays you have the perfect mix, again, of a little bit of sexy, and I got the high flyer with the wrestling. So we had to figure that out. But without getting that sexy in there and going through that period, I'm not sure you get the divas and the beautiful women and the beautiful athletes that we call them. They're not even divas anymore. They're wrestlers and athletes that we have today without them. Does anybody here kind of disagree with that? Do you feel like maybe it was a little too overly sexualized, or do you kind of understand for the 90s and for the TV, it just what it was? It still sells today. It still sells today. I just
no
want to say.
offense, that's just the way it was back then, bro. Like,
yeah,
that sells.
The 90s with the Wild West, bro.
80s and 90s
era
was pretty crazy.
The Attitude Era was the Wild West, man. You like you said, you had Girls Gone Wild and all this other. Jerry Springer was popular.
Today, I would not have my kid watch what I was watching. I'm just keeping it 100.
No.
Absolutely not.
I'm being real. I am being real. I mean, I just wouldn't. And granted, now I grew up, but I'm a horn dog, and I know that a lot of that shit came from seeing half naked women, because like I just know the reality of it. I'm gonna keep it a fucking buck. But again, it wasn't just WWE. It was all over the TV. But I did want to just call that out, because I feel like, again, it's so negative, but also like you could look at a woman's beauty and be positive. Again, a lot of the acts that they were doing were egregious. But some of the things, I feel like you can also just look at a woman's body and just be like, well, shit, she's hot, and like, damn, they're posterizing her, and then, oh shit, now she can talk. Like, I kind of get just grabbing their attention because nothing was happening. So it might have been a terrible start to it. I'm glad to see that women got incorporated, and even today we talk about it on TTR all the fucking every week. Like, women are still feel undervalued in WWE, and like we still feel like they need more titles. So it still doesn't even feel equal, even today, So I don't know. I just thought it was a nice little tidbit to throw it in there. I thought it was very crazy how they threw that in there, but I love to see Trish Stratus get her TV time. She was super dope, and to get reminded about. Lita. Yeah, you make a good point, but to get reminded how
I'm a little upset, man.
came into. I forgot she came into WWE that way. A lot of these storylines were crazy. So on to a couple more episodes. Like episode 4, they talk about Owen Hart's death. So I wanted to pass this one on. Yeah, this one was very tough. So Owen Hart, of course, had a very scary fall. And they say it was an accident after further investigation. It was a stunt gone wrong, supposedly. For a long time, Bret Hart felt like the WWE killed his brother. The conspiracy theorist in me feels like it's still parts that just feels that way. But my question here is, the call was to keep the show going. I'll pass this off to RJ to start. RJ, how bad of a call was this? Or was this the right call because you just have to go on with the show and it's hard to refund 5 million or 50,000 people, whatever it was at the time?
Yeah, it's a hard, because any person is gonna say to just turn it off. It makes the most sense.
Morally,
a person just died. But I could also see the other side, because I don't remember if he made this defense for himself or not. It's a chance for them to distract them from what happened, not in a necessarily negative way, but like guys, I know something bad just happened, but here's the Undertaker. Like it's an attempt.
Oh, it's crazy you say that. Not to cut you off, because it's crazy you say that you didn't watch a documentary. Because literally, bro said that how it happened, not word for word, but like how it happened. It was dark, so he said like the audience really couldn't see it. So, and because like they didn't announce it live to the audience, no one really knew. But continue.
Like it's easy to make that excuse. I don't know if it's the right one. I still think you stop the show, because even if Owen was the most hated guy in the locker room, that's still a person that just fell and just died. And because then I say that it's like, oh well, nobody knew he died, so we kept the show going, right? And so it's like damn, it's a way to not necessarily keep them distracted, but keep them happy long enough before they even know what's going on. Because if you stop the show and Owen's fine, it's like, oh, okay, we stopped the show for nothing. We spent all this money. So true. It's like, but also someone just fucking died. You should probably care a little bit, but so it's a hard one to answer. I kind of stay in the middle of that one.
I respect that. Dirty Dan, you I think you were watching it live, right? Didn't you say something, or you were live? So like, did you watch that live? Like,
I watched the pay-per-view. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah, so like, what are some of your feelings? I mean, at the time, how did you feel too?
He should have stopped the show, because I understand from the business standpoint about refunds, all this other stuff, but set aside from morally, of course, morally, you should stop the show. Someone died.
Right.
But then also, you're putting your talent at risk, because now their mind's not in the match.
Yeah, you make a great
point. Their
point.
mind is on.
Not a point.
All of them know Owen died.
Or is hurt.
The fans and the crowd don't know, but they know. Because in the documentary, remember, they cut to Jeff Jarrett and Deborah. And Jeff Jarrett was crying.
Hey, bro, yep.
He broke. So, like, you're putting your talent at risk after that, because now their mind is not even on the match. Now you're risking them getting hurt or doing something. And I understand, like I said, it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, it is.
Because like, at the end of the day, if you would have stopped the show, people would be like, I want a refund.
Yeah.
Yep.
No matter what.
But see, also, you don't know, because once again, they didn't see it. You could just be like, look, this was a serious accident. Because I remember JR said during the live TV, he goes, this was not a joke.
Yep.
This is because I guess people were laughing because they thought it was like a fake.
Yeah, it's like a
mannequin in the ring, like.
Yeah.
But the only thing that really bothers me is I didn't remember this until they did it when they said it on the documentary.
Yeah.
Bro, you got them wrestling. My man's blood was on the mat.
Yeah, you took my point. I was about to say it too. Or
Give me some.
His blood
this
was
is
still
what
on the mat.
I think that you have like it's going to sound really bad. God forgive me for what I'm about to say, but I think he made the right call.
Yeah,
because I like listened to him, because it was dark. You could kind of go with it, and because of, like we all been to a wrestling show, like you can't hear the commentators or nothing, so like they could talk about it and we at home will see it, but like knowing that the audience is gonna know
that. Right.
I think he definitely should have washed the ring off, because that's definitely. That's diabolical.
I mean,
that you just you just left it there and like everyone's looking at it. You didn't bother. You didn't even like sanitize or nothing. I think that's kind of weird and like ignorant though. But I really feel like he also could have maybe did like a like a 10 or 15-minute recess to like consult with the people in the back and the wrestlers and everything at least, and not just go right into it. Like not change the show, but like take a time, a prayer circle. Like, do you guys need to talk? Like, do you guys want to hug? You want to cry it out? Like,
Right,
let's
have
take
some
the time.
counselors and shit.
Yeah, like let's take the time to do it.
Yeah.
That's what that'll be me anyway, at least.
No. I agree, but I made that face just because again, it's the '90s. Again, like we had this
Yeah,
conversation, like counselors and all that shit. Just it just had a stigma, bro. Like people just didn't have that shit back then. Like NFL players just started to get this stuff. NBA players just started to get this stuff. We just started offering counseling to players like 2, 3, 4 years ago. Like it's still so fresh and. Like RJ said, back then it was still an option. You had to go seek it, but again, like just knowing the stigma behind it back then, it was just a little bit more difficult, or felt that way. So, they didn't have these people around back then. But I definitely agree. As fucked up of a call as it was, I just think it was a fucked up situation. Just one of those situations where
it's like one of the things you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Type of...
Yeah, like you're just fucked. You're just fucked. And. God rest his soul, because you die doing what you love. Sad. It's very, very sad.
I think they wanted to say something.
Oh, did you?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I was just saying. We move on to some other things that I highlighted. Shane didn't want Steph to date Triple H, but Vince did. I found that very weird. Triple H was like pushing it. I thought that and Stephanie said it herself, there was a rule that you don't, and her dad put it in place. Again, this shows you how much of a fucking contradiction this guy is. Her father, Vince, says that you cannot date talent, then says, well, I think you should date someone like Triple H. And then goes on to then say, date him. And then Shane was like, fuck no, you don't do that. And then they still wind up doing it. I thought it was very interesting.
Married. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then at the time, what they don't want to tell you as well is that, Triple H was cheating on China and left China, because at the time they were together and they had a thing, and he left for Steph. So, Triple H is, if anybody got away in this documentary, low key, it's Triple H. Bro
had to talk about nothing.
He got some blood. He got a lot of blood on his hands, and it might not be as dark and bloody as Vince's hands, but it's bright red. Oh yeah, he done some shit. To move on, a couple more things. Vince had a plot to, or not to, but Vince had a plot to where Stephanie McMahon would be pregnant, and he would be the person impregnating her.
Bro's ridiculous.
Now, RJ, you did not see the series, so I will inform you that they had Stephanie McMahon sitting there, and she basically said, I only said no to about 2 or 3 things. I basically said yes to everything else. And they asked her, what was the 2 or 3 things? And she said, well, there was one. And she said, well, I'm not going to tell you about that. Then they cut to Vince, and he just openly admits that, yeah. And and what grosses me out, oh my God, like me and my wife were watching this shit. Our mouths were just like, what? Laughs about it. Like, the laugh fucking kills me, because like, what is
funny? He is what it is. He thinks he's funny. It's his idea. It's like,
bro, yeah. And like, to just see again, as somebody who I feel like I'm obsessed with my business, and I crave like what I want out of it. There's no way I would be a slave to something like the way that he was a slave to his. It's actually quite frightening. I also said this a little bit earlier. WWE could have bought UFC at the time. Shane McMahon had the idea of buying it and said, Dad, you might want to invest into this. McMahon said no. And I found it very ironic that we go on years later and UFC is worth billions of dollars. They go out and partner with WWE. I'm gonna put this in quotation. Partner, they bought them the fuck out and said, hey, we bring WWE underneath us and we'll own 51% of it and we'll call this TKO. We really haven't seen the TKO brand. All you see is WWE and UFC. So I find it funny. Right, I agree. But I find it funny that we partnered, but just still 2 separate brands damn near. It really felt like UFC just bought WWE out, and WWE had a chance to do that with UFC and didn't. Mind-boggling to me. Dropping the ball.
The times have changed.
How times have changed. As far as Vince paid $7.5 million to a former wrestler as hush money, and forced her to have oral sex and defecated on her. And a couple other things as well that I really don't want to talk about.
What comes to your mind that you want to shit on someone? Literally,
I don't get it, bro.
I'll get away with
don't.
it.
Bro,
That's what it is. He can just do what he wants.
Like
he can.
Don't. Oh God.
And that's all I really had. But I do want to touch on that. I'm glad you said that. He can get away with it. And we talked about this today, and I actually love this conversation on a deeper note. Here in America, we really love self-made people, and self-made people deserve certain applauses. Again, in ultra weird ways.
LeBron.
Well, no, it was not even that. Just like it's just an over obsession with it, and in weird ways, I do applaud Vince. Again, like you said, in certain ways, he stood 10 toes down. A lot of people, and more than the allegations, outside the allegations, there were a lot of people after his business. Again, now I'm separating the business from the man, just from a business standpoint. A lot of people were after him, trying to replicate what he kind of stole as well, and just take a lot of it. And he withstood it, and he withstood the test of time, and he built something that we all love. And I think that's something that people. It's hard for people to grasp sometimes, but he built something in a brand that people have fallen in love with, and his wrestlers did, and they created that. So obviously they built that as well. But he played a part in it, and it's just been very crazy to see how all this has unpacked. From people watching this in our childhood to growing up. And again, I wouldn't say we ever admired Vince, but looking at him and saying, oh shit, like he's a great actor, he might be blah blah, to now saying, oh, he's a piece of shit, and all this shit. So it's insane. It's insane to see some of these wrestlers, like Hulk Hogan, testify against him after they said he wouldn't. There's a lot of backstabbing, and you see that in the world. But to kind of return to what I was saying with RJ, here in America, we love millionaires and billionaires, and they get away with a lot. Diddy has gotten away with a lot. R. Kelly, all these people, man, and it's just because they have a lot of power and they have a lot of say, and definitely a problem, and we have to stop this shit. And when people speak up, it's not always a lie. An allegation sometimes is just facts, and as crazy as the allegation might sound, a lot of crazy motherfuckers in this world, bro. Didn't it sound crazy when Jeffrey Dahmer was eating people? So
no cap.
Yeah, it's quite insane. But I would say overall, I still love the WWE. I like what RJ said earlier, they are on a high. I hope they keep riding it, but parts of me do feel like, weird way, when you're not willing to sacrifice as much as somebody like Vince was, I'm not sure if you can ride out certain things forever. I just don't. I don't know. I hope that you can, because I love WWE so much. But it was kind of crazy to see the amount of work and the amount of ideas he was willing to try. And when you're willing to try that many ideas, it's really hard to ever fail and lose your brand. When you're restrictive and you're trying to make the decisive moves, of course, you brand afloat. But I wonder, would WWE ever fizzle out because you just kind of run out of creative ideas and you're not willing to try the extra shit that you kind of don't want to. Vince went overboard, obviously, and did so much extra shit. But again, at what line do you say, well, now this is boring and we need this a little bit extra? Are you willing to do that little bit of extra? Or are you not? So that's really what my brain is. I hope that, wrestling progresses and we get better creative storylines. But so it's like I said, it's been crazy to watch. It's been a very insightful documentary. If you haven't checked it out, RJ hasn't, and I don't think he really wants to.
His face his whole time, he ain't never checking it out.
No, I understand. I understand. Yeah. For me, if you're not a wrestling fan, or if you're somebody who was a wrestling fan and just didn't get to catch up on it, this does fill you in. There's a lot of things that, again, I didn't know. Very insightful for me. Paints a very different picture. I can just tell you that go check it out and draw your own conclusions. But very good conversations today, fellas. I think overall it was really, really dope. I don't really know how to end this. I appreciate everybody watching. Please let us know in the comments how you feel. How did you feel about Netflix? How did you feel about the special? Do you even want to watch it? Do you feel like it's just a waste of time? You kind of know all the information, or you just feel like, look, I don't even want to watch it because I don't want to sympathize with this fucking monster. I understand that too. So you let me know how you feel in the comments below. Till next time, y'all.